I've never told anyone this story. Not my family, not my closest friends, not even the police, because I don't think anyone would have believed me. But every Christmas Eve since it happened, I lie awake until sunrise, listening for the sound that almost cost me my life. It started 3 years ago. Back then, I was living alone in a small rental house on the outskirts of my town. One of those older places that creaks in random places, even when there's no wind. The kind of place you get used to, until something reminds you that maybe you shouldn't have. It was Christmas Eve, and most of the neighborhood had cleared out to visit family. My relatives lived across the country, and I couldn't afford the flight that year, so I planned on spending the night with some movies and a cheap dinner. I remember thinking it was going to be the quietest holiday of my life. Around 11:45 p.m., I was lying on the couch, half asleep, when I heard a thud on the roof. Not a light tap, a thud, like something heavy had landed up there. I sat up, listening, and told myself it was probably just snow sliding off, except it wasn't snowing. Then I heard the scraping. Long, slow, deliberate scraping across the roof. It traveled from one end of the house to the other, directly above me. It sounded like someone walking with something heavy dragging behind them. My heart rate increased, but I tried to reason with myself. Animals, maybe. Raccoons, a possum, something normal. Then came the laugh, muffled by the thickness of the roof, but unmistakably human. I froze. My TV remote slipped off my lap and hit the floor, startling me so badly I grabbed my phone like it was a weapon. I didn't call the cops. Not yet. I wasn't even convinced I wasn't dreaming. But then I heard footsteps climbing down, on the outside of the house. Slow, heavy footsteps stepping down the side paneling, as though someone was using the gutters as a ladder. I crept to the window and gently lifted a corner of the blind. I wish I hadn't. A man in a Santa suit was climbing down the side of my house. Not a cheap mall Santa costume. This one looked old. The fabric was faded, torn in places, and the hat drooped like it had never been washed. He had a huge burlap sack slung over his back. For a few seconds he just hung there, staring straight into the darkness like he was listening. Then he turned his head, slowly, and looked directly at the window I was peeking from. I dropped the blinds so fast they smacked against the frame. My first instinct was to call 911, but before I could dial, I heard the crunch of boots walking toward my front door. Then the doorknob jiggled, once, twice, harder each time. Then a voice, muffled, but as bright and cheerful as a nightmare version of holiday cheer. "You awake in there, kiddo? Santa's got a special delivery." My blood ran cold. He pounded on the door, not like a normal knock, more like he was testing how sturdy it was. I could hear the old wood flexing. My house didn't have a peephole, so I stood several feet back, phone in one hand, a kitchen knife in the other. Then I heard something I'll never forget, the sound of tape being peeled, vast rough strips being torn from a roll. Then the man whispered, loud enough for me to hear through the door, "Gotta wrap up the naughty ones real tight." I backed away until I felt the wall behind me. My voice shook as I finally dialed 911. The operator picked up immediately. While I was explaining what was happening, I heard footsteps move around the house again, this time toward the back. That chilled me worse than the knocking. The back door had a weaker lock. I whispered into the phone, "He's going to the back door, please, send someone now." The operator told me to stay on the line and hide somewhere safe. The footsteps disappeared behind the house. Then came the testing of the back door, a soft rattle, then harder, then a slam. "Let me in," the man said. His voice was deeper now, no holiday cheer. "Let me in, and it'll be quick." I ran to my bedroom and slipped into the closet, shutting the door as quietly as possible. I crouched behind a stack of boxes, trying not to breathe too loudly. I could hear him trying every window, moving around the house like he was checking a list. At one point, he even tried to open my bedroom window. He slid something along the glass, trying to pry it up. But I'd locked every window earlier in the week because of the cold. I held my breath, praying he wouldn't break it. After about 2 minutes of silence, I thought maybe he had given up. But then the front door made a sound I will never forget, the deadbolt clicking. He had unlocked it. I didn't know how, but he had. The door creaked open, and the cold night air flowed into the house. My heart hammered as the floorboards groaned under the weight of his boots. He walked slowly, deliberately. Each step was followed by a soft dragging sound, something heavy scraping the floor. "Come on out," he whispered. "Santa sees you." He walked into the living room, then the hallway. Then he stopped, right in front of my bedroom door. He pressed his hand against it. I could hear the faint rustle of his sleeve against the wood. "I know you're in there." He tried the knob. It shook. He tried again, harder. Then he started laughing. Not jolly, not cheerful. A disturbing, breathless laugh that sounded like someone who had forgotten how real laughter works. I was shaking uncontrollably. The knob turned harder, then harder. Then the door slammed, as though he'd thrown his entire body against it. The hinges rattled. Dust fell from the frame. He whispered through the crack, "Naughty little kids get the sack." He lifted something heavy. I heard the bag he was carrying scrape the wall. He was going to break the door down. I braced myself, knife shaking in my hand, when suddenly, police sirens, close. The man stopped. Absolute silence followed, then fast footsteps. He bolted down the hallway, through the living room, and out the front door. I heard the sirens grow louder, car doors slamming, officers shouting. But by the time they cleared the house, the man in the Santa suit was long gone. They found footprints around the property, but they led into the woods and disappeared. The cops stayed with me until I packed a bag and left for a hotel. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept replaying the sound of his whisper at my bedroom door. But the worst part, when the officers asked if anything had been stolen or disturbed, I looked around, and on my kitchen table was a small, crudely wrapped present. Brown paper, red tape, no tag. Inside was a single Polaroid photo of me from earlier that night, sleeping on the couch, taken through the window. And on the back, written shakily in red ink, "See you next Christmas."